This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good evening everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Abam. We have an amazing Shiur tonight. Parshas Re'eh. The Shiurim on Sefer Devarim are generously sponsored by Dr. Zakheim and Mishpachte Nishmas Reb Shlomo Eliezer ben Rabbi Yaakov Zakheim and Le'iloi Nishmas Dr. Zakheim's mother, Rivka Bas Tuvi Halevi, Began Eden Tehei Menuchasam. They should be Melitzei Yisham for their families, for Simchas Hanachas, Arbiyas Gal Tzedakah. We have a number of sponsors for tonight's Shiur. Tonight's Shiur is sponsored anonymously, Le'iloi Nishmas Yosef ben Chemda. Tonight's Shiur is dedicated by Eli Babayev, Lezecher Nishmas, his father-in-law, Avraham Albert ben Gabriel and Esther ben Yaminov. Tonight's Shiur is sponsored by Avila Tova for a healthy and successful labor and delivery for his wife Miriam Chaya Bas Brana Doba. And last but not least, tonight's Shiur is dedicated by daily giving that you're going to hear about more during this Shiur. Okay, tonight we're speaking about the mitzvah of Tzedaka. The pasuk says regarding giving charity, Nasayin titein lai, you shall surely give it to him. V'lo yeira levavcha b'sidcha lai. It should not be difficult in your eye, in your heart, when you give to him. Ki beglal hadavar hazeh. For because of this matter, yivarechacha Hashem leikecha. Hashem your God will bless you. B'chol ma'asecha, in all of your activities, u'b'chol mishlach yadecha, and in whatever you set out to do. So this is the mitzvah of tzedakah. Nasayin titein lai. So normally, let's say somebody knocks on your door. So you hope that the lights are off, and he doesn't realize that anyone's actually home. And then if he keeps on knocking because he figures, somebody must be home, so what are you going to do? He's knocking, he's not going to let up. So you answer the door. And sometimes you have to actually give him something. But maybe sometimes you'll be thinking, this is highway robbery. I mean, the only way basically I'm going to get this guy to stop knocking on my door is by I'm paying him to stop knocking on my door. I need to continue on with my day. I need to go to sleep. So I'm here, take $1, $10 to stop knocking on my door. No, the Torah says, you should give it to him. But it should not be bad in your eyes when you give it to him. Because of this matter, Hashem will bless you. And we have to identify what is hadavar hazeh that the pasuk is talking about. Comes Rabbeinu Yoina in the Shari Tshuva, in Shar Gimel, Islam Hey. And Rabbeinu Yoina tells us, on this pasuk, Nasayin titein lai, v'lo yeira levavcha b'sidcha lai. Says Rabbeinu Yoina, huzharnu bazeh. We are adjourned. Laharchik min nafshenu tsaros ha'ayin. To distance from our soul stinginess. V'lo yosenu toivei ayin. We should be generous. Like the pasuk says, someone of good eye, he will be blessed. It's not enough to give a gift. It's not enough to give tzedakah. It's not enough to give charity. Until you plant in your soul the midah of generosity. In other words, it's not enough to give $10, $100, $1,000, $1 million. The gift is not alone. The gift is not enough. Giving the money is not enough. It is required that at the time you give it, you learn to be a sport. You have a feeling of generosity. Let him enjoy it. Let him have it. Better he have it than I have it. The desire to give, the desire to want to benefit someone, the desire to be generous, the desire to be giving. It's not enough to give. It must be accompanied by a feeling of generosity. If somebody gives but he feels, I have to give because if word gets out that I'm not going to give, I have to marry off my kids and I want people to think I'm a good guy, you're over a lav in the Torah. It's one of the 613 lavin. You have to give with a feeling of generosity. Now it's interesting. If the Torah would have said, Lo yeira levavcha b'sidcha lai, nasayin titein lai, if the Torah would have said, it shouldn't be bad in your eyes to give it to him. Give to him. You know what the Torah would be saying? If you're deliberating, should I give, should I not give? You're thinking, should I give it to him? Should I not give it to him? So the Torah says, don't be stingy. Give it to him. So then all the Torah would be saying is, overcome your stinginess and give it. But the Torah doesn't say, don't be stingy, give it to him. It says, give it to him. And even after you've given it to him, you better make sure that when you give it to him, it's accompanied with feelings of generosity. In other words, if it would have said, don't be stingy first, you would have said the Torah is saying, don't be stingy, give it. No, the Torah is not saying, don't be stingy, give it. Even after you've given it, you need to make sure that the giving is accompanied with feelings of generosity. Now, so you say, how do I give generously? I need the money. Or I worked hard for the money. I don't understand. I worked hard for the money. I worked 9 to 5. I schwitz for the money. This guy's just knocking on my door. I work hard for the money, and I should give it away freely to this guy who's freeloading off a knock on the door. That's not right. So the Rambam tells us, there's a pasuk in Yeshaya, V'haya ma'aseh hatzedaka shalom. And the act of tzedakah is peace. What does it mean, the act of tzedakah is peace? Va'avodas hatzedakah, and the service of tzedakah, hashket v'vetach, is tranquil and secure. Ad olam, forever. Comes the Rambam, and the Rambam says, we are obligated to be careful in the midst of tzedakah more than any other mitzvah in the Torah. More than tefillin, more than chesed, more than Talmud Torah. One is obligated to be careful in the midst of tzedakah more than any other mitzvah. Because tzedakah shows that you're of good lineage. Tzedakah shows you come from Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Hashem says, I love Abraham because he commands his children to do tzedakah. And Klal Yisrael will only be redeemed, says the Rambam, because of tzedakah. And no one ever became poor because of tzedakah. And nothing bad ever happened from giving tzedakah. And no damage ever happened from giving tzedakah. In other words, if there's an important cause and you say, okay, hey, $100, $100 not going to kill me. But $3,000, that's a dent. Nothing bad ever happened by being a sport. How do I know? V'haya ma'aseh hatzedakah shalom. The act of tzedakah is peace. The Rambam continues, anyone who's cruel and does not have rachamim, you should be suspicious of his lineage. Achzarious cruelty is only found by the nations of the world. But all Jews and anyone who accompanies them, all of us, we're brothers. Like the pasuk says in this week's Parsha, Banim atem l'Hashem Elokeichem, you're all the children of Hashem. Now, isn't it interesting that first the Torah says you're children to Hashem in this week's Parsha, and soon after that it talks about the mitzvah of tzedakah. So the Rambam is saying all of Jewish people are considered brothers because we're all the children of Hashem. It comes out very beautiful then that the introduction to the mitzvah of tzedakah in this week's Parsha is you're the children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then the Torah says there's a mitzvah of tzedakah. In other words, let's think about that. You know why you should give charity to somebody? If your brother needed a boost, would you help him? Yeah, I would help him, of course. So the mitzvah of tzedakah is an offshoot of the principle that we are children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if you're not going to have mercy on your brother, then who's going to have mercy on him? Who are the Jewish poor supposed to look toward? The nations of the world hate them. They pursue them. Even the United States of America, they would vote that, the nations of the world, they could commit every moral atrocity in the world, but it's okay. But if the Jewish people defend themselves, no. Then you'll get the President of the United States will say he's very concerned about so we have nobody who loves us other than our own. And therefore it's very interesting that the mitzvah of tzedakah, let's take note of the fact that in this week's Parsha, the Parsha of Tzedakah, before the mitzvah of Pasayach Tiftach Es Yadcha, we have the great principle, Banim atem l'Hashem Elokeichem, you are the children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's very interesting. We've said many, many times in the Shiurim, that why is it that only Klal Yisrael is given the gift of tshuva, the nations of the world are not given the gift of tshuva? This is something we spoke about many, many times, that only the Jewish people are able to do tshuva, and the nations of the world are not able to do tshuva. Why is that? So we've said over from the Chidah that in order for tshuva to work, Hashem has to forgive us. There's a principle that a king cannot overlook his honor. Melech shemachal al kvoidei ein kvoidei machal. So how does God forgive us? Hashem is the king of the world. The answer is because Hashem is our father. Hashem is the father of the Jewish people. So since banim atem Hashem alekeichem, since you are the children of Hashem, therefore that allows for the possibility of tshuva. But the nations of the world are not the children of Hashem. Only the Jewish people are the children of Hashem. Therefore the nations of the world are not able to do tshuva. We've said many, many times over the years that what's the parsha that we read in the beginning of Chodesh Elul? Parshas Re'eh is always the first parsha of Chodesh Elul, or Shabbos Mevarchim Elul. Why? Because Elul is the month of tshuva, and therefore we have to read what's the engine of tshuva, what's the mechanism of tshuva. The engine of tshuva is Banim Atem L'Hashem Elokeichem. But Banim Atem L'Hashem Elokeichem is also the engine of tzedakah. Why do I have to give tzedakah to somebody else, to another Jew? It's because we're brothers. So in the beginning of Chodesh Elul, which is a chodesh of tshuva, we read about the engine of tshuva, we read about the engine of tzedakah. Actually, it's very interesting. We know that one of the ramazim of chodesh Elul is ish l'reyehu u'matanais lo'evyonim. So chodesh Elul then is designated for tzedakah. And maybe one of the reasons it's designated for tzedakah is because since the concept of tzedakah comes from the fact that we're children of Hashem, and being children of Hashem allows for the possibility of tshuva, so what do we do in Elul? We give tzedakah. We show we're all brothers. If we're all brothers, we're God's children. God, if we're your children, you got to forgive us. So in other words, giving tzedakah in Chodesh Elul sort of solidifies and upholds the idea that we're the children of Hashem, and now Hashem has to forgive us. Okay, so now I want to share with you.
What's pasuk tes? What is pasuk tes?
Where?
No, I'm saying you start with pasuk yud. What's the previous pasuk?
The pasuk says, "Pasayach tiftach es yadacha la'aniyacha." A similar thing. You'll see why I'm quoting this pasuk. Okay, I want to focus on the words ki beglal hadavar hazeh yivarechecha Hashem leikecha. So let's start with the first idea. The first idea is from the Chida in the Sefer Avodas HaKodesh, Moira Be'etzba Ois Yud Beis. The Chida wrote a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch of sort. It's a very powerful Sefer. Every line of the Sefer is like a nuclear bomb. Says the Chida, Yizaher laseis tzedakah b'chol yaim. You should be careful to give tzedakah every day, lefachos pruta, at least a pruta. So this brings us to one of the sponsors of tonight's share, which is Daily Giving. Daily Giving is an amazing organization. Basically what it is you sign up and you give $1 to tzedakah every day. So they take you sign up and they take from your credit card $1 a day to a whole host of basically an array of all the tzedakahs. Hatzalah, United Hatzalah, Chai Lifeline, RCCS, Torah Anytime, you name it, Lev La'achim, you name the tzedakah, they're giving to it. And it's an opportunity basically to ensure that you don't go a day of your life without tzedakah. Most people, they come to shul, they're giving tzedakah. What happens? I don't know, you can't make it, or you don't have the dollar on you, or it's Shabbos, or it's Yom Tif, or it's Chol Hamoed, or for whatever reason, you want to make sure 365 days a year, you're giving tzedakah every single day. Another great mila of this organization is that, it's hard. A Jew wants to have a chelek of all good causes. So basically, it's a diversified spiritual portfolio. You're contributing to all good Jewish causes. Just tell you a quick story. A lot of people have signed up, not only for themselves and their wife, but for their children. So my friend, Jonathan, the head of Daily Giving, he just told me a few hours ago that Jonathan Donath, that he saw that somebody signed up 5 times for Daily Giving on 5 different emails. So he called them up, thank you very much. Why you signed up for a 5-time? He said for him, for his wife, and his 3 kids. So he asked, how old are your kids? Are they 15, 17? My kids, they're 1, 2, and 4. So he said, why did you sign up for them? He said, look, I made a separate email address for all of them. When they become 10, 11, 12, they're going to start using their email, and they're going to see that the only emails they have, there are going to be 1,000 emails on their email. And these 1,000 emails are, thank you from RCCS for giving $1. Thank you from Chai Lifeline for giving $1. Thank you for United Hatzah for giving $1. And the kid is going to grow up knowing he's been a giver his whole life. So it's really a beautiful way to be mechanech your children and be mekayim the inyan of giving tzedakah every day. Okay, but here's the Kabbalistic point that I want to get to. Says the Chidah, you should be mechavin that when you give tzedakah, you're meyached Hashem's 4-letter name, Yud Kei Vav Kei. How? Your arm that gives the tzedakah, what letter is your arm? No? Look at the arm. What letter is the arm when you stretch out your arm? It's a Vav. Okay? You're giving it with your 5 fingers. Hey. The pruta is a Yud. And the hand of the ani is a Hey. Yud Kei Vav Kei. Or in the pasuk we read in number 3, V'haya Maseh Tzedakah Shalom. Why does the pasuk start with the word V'haya? The answer is Vav is your arm. Hey is your hand. Yud is the pruta. Hey is the hand of the yani. And if you say, but I give a lot of my tzedakah, I'm giving it on daily giving, I'm giving it on charity.com, I'm giving it on... You could imagine it. You're mechavein. My giving, I'm stretching out my hand, metaphorically, is a vav. My arm is a vav. My hand is a hey. The coin is a yud. And the hand of the recipient is a hey. So that's a beautiful kavanah to have. By giving tzedakah, you're meyached the shem havaya, yud kei vav kei. By the way, the Chidah goes on to say, you should be very careful in tzedakah. It is in lieu of karbanos bisman hazeh. In other words, if you wanted to be makriv a carbon bisman hazeh, when you give tzedakah, it's like being makriv a carbon. It's mechaper even on intentional averos. It saves you from death. One is misbarech with many, many brachos found in Ksuvim and in Chazal. So if you want to sign up for daily giving, go to dailygiving.org. I have to say, I did it myself, and it's a good feeling. Sometimes you're here, you're there, you don't remember, you have on you, you don't have on you. Every day you get an email, at least you know you did something good that day, At least you did one good deed that day. Anyway, but Chidah says, you should be careful, whatever charity you do should be in secret. You should not talk about the charity that you give, the tzedakah that you give. You should not praise yourself in the charity that you give. And even if you don't praise yourself, don't even do something like sometimes people, they'll arrange that people should find out about what they did. They're never going to say it themselves, but they know exactly how to orchestrate that whoever they want to find out will find out. It's always better that way, so you don't have to boast. It's like, the person, my friend, accidentally found out. Accidentally, you've been setting this up for the last 3 years that you should find out exactly what you did. No, I don't say a word from it. But I asked my yeshiva to honor me and read at the dinner every penny I ever gave to the yeshiva. So, it says the Chidah, don't breathe a word about what you did. Now, the truth is, if there's an appeal, Chavetz Chaim talks about, don't make it anonymous. Never make it anonymous, because actually you get a mitzvah not only by giving tzedakah, but also by saying you're going to give tzedakah as a separate mitzvah. So the Chavetz Chaim says, if you're going to give tzedakah, you should say. So the idea would be, if there's an appeal, say you're giving $100, then you could give 100 times more than that. But at least you should say something. In other words, don't be the guy who you could still hide your charity and yet be part of what everybody's doing. In other words, if people think you're not giving, then they're going to be very inspired to do as well. Okay. It's interesting, the Chidah says in Ois Tezvav, the Iker Tzedakah should be for those who are immersed and toil in Torah. That is the greatest tzedakah. And this is indicated in the pasuk, Shlach lachmecha al pnei hamayim, send your bread on the waters, ein mayim ela Torah. the greatest tzedakah is to support those who are learning Torah. And says the Chida, by doing so, you're making many, many mitzvahs simultaneously. Number one, tzedakah. And if you're being machzik, loim de Torah, marbitze Torah, so then you get a schar in that learning and that harbatzas Torah. And you're mechabe the Torah. And that's the greatest form of tzedakah. But be it as it may, what I want to focus on tonight is the 4 different kavanos one should have when they give tzedakah. Kavana number 1 is, don't do it begrudgingly. Do it as a sport. Do it generously. Whatever a person's able to give, do it as a sport. Number 2, there is a kavana to have that when you give tzedakah, you should be mechavin, you're being meyached the name of Hashem. Your arm is a vav, the fingers are a hey, the coin is a yud, and the hand of the ani is a hey. Says the Chida in his commentary on Megillas Rus, maybe this is what Boaz means when he meets the workers in his field, and he says to them, Vayomer Boaz la koitzerim Hashem imachem. Boaz says to his harvesters, God is with you. What did Boaz mean that God is with you? What he was saying is, you're involved all day in the field, so you're giving leket, shikha, and peah, and by giving matnas aniyim, you're constantly being meyached the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So therefore, what Boaz was saying, Hashem imachem, God is with you in your activities. But they say back to Boaz, no, vayomer lo yivarechecha Hashem. Hashem should bless you. You're the owner of the field. You're providing us with the resources. You're providing us the grain. So you're the one who's being meyached Hashem's name. You're the one who's allowing us to put together the vav and the hey and the yud and the hey. Okay, so that's Kavana number 2. There's an idea that by giving tzedakah, you're being meyached the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is reiterated in the Svarim of the Chida in many places. In the Sefer Tzipayr and Shamir, the Chida says, Uvazeh meyached shem hamiyuchad havaya Baruch Hu. Like the Arizal says, this is enumerated in the Sefer Devash Lefi, where the Chida talks about here he says a very interesting thing, and this is also very relevant to the organization we spoke about, daily giving, and that is, in order for a person to reap the benefits of tzedakah, you have to give to a good cause. It has to be a worthy cause. Now, chances are, not every guy who comes to you by Shachras and stretches out his hand, not every guy is legitimate. What percentage of them are? I don't know. Let's hope most of them are legitimate. But in order for a person to reap the real benefits of tzedakah, the recipient has to be an ish hagan, has to be an appropriate person. So therefore, it's very important, the Chida says, when it comes to tzedakah, you want to diversify. You don't want to throw all your eggs in one basket. Because you throw all your eggs in one, you give to one yeshiva. And what happens if turns out, well, it turns out that place wasn't what it was cut out to be. What happens if you gave to that person and it wasn't as seemed? So the Chida says that in order that you're not giving your tzedakah to Adam she'enoi hagan, he says, look at number 11, ha'etza ha'yeutza, the advised plan, she'yitein tzedakah laharbe aniyim, you want to give to many different aniyim, ki bein kulam yuvadai hagan. Chances are, if you diversify, a couple of them will be very worthy and will be proper recipients. Says the Chida, this is the meaning of the pasuk. Pizar nasan la evyoinim. If you scatter your tzedakah to the poor, then tzidkasa yoimedas la'ad. Then your righteousness lasts forever. But if somebody, some people they say, could you help out? No. I only give to this yeshiva, right? He gives all of his money to this cause. Okay, that's very good, provided that he got the right place. He didn't get the right place, it's a bad investment. If he's investing all of his money with in a Ponzi scheme, then that's not a good financial investment. So a person has to consider his spiritual activities no less important than his financial activities. And the same way, financially, everybody knows the key to financial security is you got to diversify. You put some in real estate, some in stocks, some in savings. So when it comes to tzedakah, you want to diversify, which is another great benefit of daily giving, which they distribute to something like 75 different tzedakahs, and you could sign up today at dailygiving.org. Okay, now let's talk about something astounding, another kavanah to have when giving tzedakah. So far, the first kavanah Rabbeinu Yonah says is not to do it b'tsaras ha'ayin, you should do it b'tuvei ha'ayin. Number 2, the Chida talks about the kavanah, you're giving meyacheh, the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the arm is the vav, and the hand is the hey, and the pruta is the yud, and the hand of the ani is the hey. The Chida has a small compendium called Kaf Achas. In Kaf Achas, he brings simple kavanos to have when you give tzedakah. Now, I'll tell you the truth, I wasn't aware of any of these kavanos. I thought you just give tzedakah. The guy needs money, so I'm trying to help him out. I remember Rav Miller would say that there was once a doctor who would treat him, and I think he didn't charge him, and he was very grateful to him. So he used to put a nickel in the pushka every day, le'iloi nishmas, that doctor. So that was like the first time I heard, when you give tzedakah, there could be a kavanah that you could have when you give tzedakah. Okay? Fasten your seatbelt, because this concept of simple kavanah by giving tzedakah now opens up a whole new realm of literally, possibly, 50 different kavanahs to have when you give tzedakah. Okay? And it's going to be very simple. The Chida says, he doesn't say where he found this. When you give tzedakah, have kavanah to redeem all the sparks of kedusha of your nefesh, your ruach, and your neshama, and to redeem all the Torah and the mitzvahs and the tefillahs that you've offered that maybe got lost in the dark side. Maybe one time you were learning and then you were fooling around or something, or it wasn't such a great learning. Maybe that learning got sucked in by the bad team, so you want to redeem that learning. I'm giving tzedakah, I have kavanah to redeem all the sparks of kedusha of Torah, mitzvahs, tefillah that ever got pushed off to the klipais. And through my tzedakah, I want to release all the kedusha, that it should be cleansed from any sin. Number 2, I'm giving tzedakah, I want to be mavatel all the accusers in Shamayim against me. Number 3, if I owe anybody money, either in this lifetime, or maybe in a previous existence, and I didn't pay him back, Rebbe Hashem, allow this tzedakah to help me rectify that. Now, how would it rectify that? I don't know. I'm giving tzedakah. Maybe the shul will use the dollar to buy, a bencher for Shalosh Shudas, and the guy's going to use it, and he's going to pay. I paid him back because he's going to bench with kavanah. He's going to ask Hashem for something, and Hashem's going to give him something worth $500, and then he's paid back. I don't know, but you could be mechavin by giving tzedakah. Rebbe Hashem, if I owe anyone money, help me. This should be rectified. Now, don't think that you could, go to somebody for a service. You owe him $10,000, not pay him back, put a nickel in the pushka, and say, Rebbe Hashem, help me rectify the fact. No. If you owe someone $10,000 and you're putting a nickel in the pushka, you're a gazlan gamor. No, that's not going to help. We're talking about in an extreme circumstance. You didn't realize you owe him the money. You had no way to pay him back. Okay. Next, you want this tzedakah to bring a nachas ruach to the nefesh, ruach, neshama of your father, your mother, your great uncle, all the whole mishpacha in Gan Eden. And you have in mind that tzedakah accomplishes awesome things in the upper worlds. And your kavanah is that whatever it is that tzedakah accomplishes, I want my tzedakah to accomplish it. And whatever the Rashbi and the Ari understood that tzedakah does, I want my tzedakah to do that. That is the Chida's executive summary of the kavanahs to have when you give tzedakah. But I'll tell you the truth. I have a friend in Brooklyn. He publishes a sefer of Reb Chaim Falaji, and he also helped publish a sefer called Maseh HaTzedakah. The sefer Maseh HaTzedakah was written by Rabbeinu Yaakov Yisraelija from Salonika. And if you've ever seen in the newspapers, you ever see they have these ads, Reb Chaim Falaji says that on this day, if you give 63 coins to tzedakah, or if you give on Erev Pesach 72 coins to tzedakah, or if you give on 3 days before Shavuos 500 coins to tzedakah, It all comes from the Sefer Maaseh HaTzedakah. The Maaseh HaTzedakah revealed that every single day of the year, there's a specific formula with which you could rectify big things by giving a certain number of coins. I would say we are not on the level to be doing that, First worry about the meat and potatoes, and we'll let you know when you're up to giving specific number of coins. But this is an entire sefer of a program of tzedakah for every day of the year, and what to think, and how many coins. And Rav Chaim Falaji in his sefer Kaf HaChaim writes about every day there is a specific tikkun of giving tzedakah, and through special tefillos and special amounts. If only Klal Yisrael would be familiar with this sefer, Maaseh HaTzedakah. So I figured, look, I'm giving a shiur on tzedakah. Let me check out the Maaseh HaTzedakah. How often is there a shiur dedicated to tzedakah? And I haven't really cracked open that sefer too much. So here he brings, I think, the elongated version of the various kavanas to have when you give tzedakah. If you go through his whole version, just giving a penny in the pushka, it's like a good half hour. Okay? So I'm going to, in the next few minutes, just give you an executive summary of some of the kavanas to have. And I would say, if there's something specifically relevant to a person, there's nothing wrong if a person is a mechavein. When you give the tzedakah, you could have that in mind as well. First of all, this comes from the Rashash, Shalom Sharabi, who's the Rebbe of the Chidah. And he brings a whole L'Shem Yichud Kochabrichu, that I'm giving the tzedakah b'Shem Kol Yisrael to rectify an entire source, and to Mekayim the mitzvah Pasayach Tiftach, and B'chei Achicha Imach, and not to violate the lav of Kiyah B'cha Evyain. And may it be the will of Hashem that through this act of tzedakah, I'm mekasher the 4 letters of the Shem Havaya, and I'm mechavein, my arm should be a vav, and my finger should be a hey, and the coin should be a yud, and the hand of the ani should be a hey. And he gets into the Kabbalistic symbolism of all these things in great detail. Let's go through some of the kavanas. Number 1, I'm mechavein, that I'm giving the tzedakah, that all my tefillos and Torah should be niskabel before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Number 2, I'm mechavein to redeem all the souls and spirits and neshamas and sparks of kedusha and Torah, mitzvahs and tefillos and masim tovim that ever fell into the bad places. Number 3, I have kavanah to redeem all the nefashos, ruchos, neshamas, sparks in any of the 7 levels of Gehenna. You might have had a friend. He wasn't really behaving himself in this world, and God took him to the next world, and you are sure he's on a very high setting in the barbecue. So you want to help him out. So you have in mind, you're giving the tzedakah, you would like to redeem that guy from the self-cleaning oven. That's also a kavanah to have. Number 4, be mechavein, that the tzaddikim in Gan Eden, they should have menucha, or if you want to have in mind a specific tzaddik. Number 5, if someone's departed father or mother in Gan Eden, you give tzedakah, their parents should have menucha in the olam ha'emes. Next, number 6, there's an idea that sometimes you could go to a kever, and the soul of the tzaddik at that kever, he takes a ride on you. Not that you become his gilgal, but he gives you a boost. Also, beyond our pay grade. But for example, with the Ben Ish Chai, when he went to Benayo ben Yehoyada, he had Ibur Neshama from Benayo ben Yehoyada. So have in mind that you should be zoicha, that big tzaddikim should take a ride on you and help you out in Avodas Hashem. I'm not telling you should do this, I'm just giving you a little bit of a picture of, don't think your act of putting a nickel in the pushka is a small thing. Okay. You want to push off any bad spirit, nefesh, ruach, neshama, that's camping out on you. I forgot what number I'm up. Number 9. Have kavanah that Hashem should save you from the Yetzer Hara, or from bad thoughts, or from eating anything inappropriate. Number 10. Hashem should help out all of Klal Yisrael to help them do tshuva. You know someone who needs to do tshuva? Give the tzedakah and have in mind Hashem should help Ploini Almani do tshuva. 11. You want the Ribbon Shalom to help us to elevate our Torah and Tefillah and our Masim Tovim, and all of our achila. Number 12, you want to sweeten the midas hadin. Number 13, Hashem should be merape all the chayla Yisrael. You know a chayla who needs a refuah, you put in the coin, you have in mind, Hashem should send pliny refuah shalema. 14, Hashem should protect the Jewish people from tzara, especially in our city here in Salonika, and especially in Yerushalayim. Now, it happens to we don't live in Salonika, in case you didn't know, so you could have in mind Woodmere, just because he wrote Salonika, but you don't live in Salonika. Okay. Hashem should be mevatel all the makachim on Klal Yisrael. Hashem should strengthen us in avodas Hashem. Hashem should help all travelers. Hashem, if you owe somebody money and you don't know who and you don't know how much, this Gilgul, previous Gilgul, you accidentally stole from somebody, Hashem should allow the tzedakah to help you pay them back. You should be zoichet to children who are righteous and they should live long. That Hashem should save your children from sin. That Hashem should help your son find a good spouse. That Hashem should help your daughter find a good spouse. Hashem should be mezakeh, that your children are go l'Torah u'la'avodah. Hashem should save us from the klipos. Hashem should give us long life. That when your soul goes upstairs at night, it shouldn't hang around in this world. It should go up to the Mesivta Rakia and hear good Shiurim. Okay. Hashem should help us fix what we need to in this lifetime. Alright, I think you get the picture. Hashem should help us open the Shari Rachamim. Hashem should give us Chayim, Toivim, Aruchim. But what's definitely, most people will not have the time to have all these 50 kavanas every time they put a nickel in the pushka. But if there is some need that a person has, it's considered appropriate that you could be mechavein to one of these things. Okay, so this is the third kavana. In other words, number one, be a sport. Don't give the tzedakah begrudgingly. Nothing bad will happen from the tzedakah. He's your brother. Give it happily. Number two, have in mind that by giving the tzedakah, you're unifying the name of Hashem. Number three, there are all kinds of kavanos to escort your tzedakah. And number four is probably the most important one. And number four, the only way to accomplish is good old-fashioned tzedakah. The Gemara says in Bava Basra, Testament Beis, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, anyone who gives a coin to an ani gets 6 blessings. Anyone who is mefayis the ani gets 11 blessings. If you give tzedakah to an ani, you get 6 blessings. It says, Haloi parois lorav rachmecha v'animrun tavibayis kiseram v'chisisai. You get 6 blessings. But if you're mefayis him, you get 11 blessings. Comes Tosfos. Mefayis means you speak nicely to him. How you doing? It's good to see you. You're looking good today. You give him a kind word. You encourage him. You give him words of kindness. So the $1 million question is, if you give $1, you get 6 blessings. If you give him kind words, you get 11 blessings. Do you get an additional 11 or an additional 5 for a total of 11? Right, in other words, if you give tzedakah, you get 6. If you console, you get 11. But is that 11 with the giving, or is it separate? This is the question of Tosfos. So comes Tosfos, and Tosfos says, you get a full 11 blessings. And therefore, when the Gemara says, V'hamafaisai, not like the Girsa, and if you give and you're mefayis, you get 11. If you just mefayis, you get 11. So it means there are 2 people. One guy, there's an ani standing on the door. One guy gives him $10. The other guy has no money on him. He says, sorry, I don't have money. I'm really happy to see you today. You're looking really good today. It made my day to see you. Which guy did better? The guy who had no money on him, and he gave him kind words. And the third guy who did both is even better than both of them. So Rav Avigdor Miller asked, how does Tosfos know that if you console the ani, you get an additional 11, maybe you just get an additional 5, a total of 11. Tosfos doesn't really say what his source is. I think I heard Rav Miller say this. It's also published in the Sefer Shari Oirach, Elek Beis. He says there's a Gemara in Bava Metzia. What's worse? To abuse someone verbally or to abuse them financially? Ainoas dvarim or ainoas mamain? So the Gemara says it's worse to abuse someone verbally than to abuse them financially. The Gemara says by verbal abuse it says fear God, because only God. There are lines you could say to someone that nobody knows that you're hurting the guy's feeling except for you and him. So only God knows. So it says fear God by verbal abuse. Also, verbal abuse is against his body. Also, there's no way to give it back to him. Money, if you steal money, you could pay him back. If you hurt someone's feelings, you can't give it back to him. Ask Rav Miller, what are you giving back? What do you mean give back? What did I take? What did I take from someone that I verbally abused? So David says, what I took is something more valuable than money. I took his kabod, I took his dignity. Taking someone's dignity is taking their life. That's more severe than taking their money. Says Rav Miller, if taking someone's dignity is worse than taking their money, then on the flip side, giving someone dignity is greater than giving them money. So now I have a choice. If I give him a coin, I get 6 blessings. If I give him a good word and dignity, is it an additional 5 or additional 11? It's got to be additional 11. It can't be 5, because then it would come out money is more valuable than dignity. But we know from the flip side that it's worse to take away someone's dignity than to take away their money. So it must be you get an additional 11 blessings. Comes the chidah. So if I give tzedakah and I give him kind words, how many blessings do I get? 6 for the 17. So let's go back to the pasuk. What does the pasuk say? Nasoin titen la, give it to him. V'lo yeira levavcha b'sitcha lai. Ki biglal hadavar. If I speak nicely, you know what I get? Hazeh. I get 17 blessings. Hazeh is gematria 17. So now the pasuk is saying you should give it to him. And our whole shiur is in the pasuk. Why? Nasoin titen la, you should give it to him. And after I give it to him, lo yera levavcha, be a sport, don't give it begrudgingly. Ki biglal, look at number 6 in the Chidah, in the Dvash Lafi, biglal, what's the gematria biglal? 65. That's the gematria Aleph Daled Nun Yud, Hashem's name. Ki biglal, if you give the tzedakah, you're unifying Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei. The arm is the Vav, and the fingers are the Hey, and the coin is the Yud, and the hand is the Hey. So number 1, be a sport. Number 2, biglal, you're unifying the name of Hashem. And hadavar, if you speak nice words, hazeh, you get 17 blessings. Now, I'm going to tell you a little lamdas. There's a Tosfos in Baba Basra. Tosfos in Baba Basra is asking, there was a man by the name of Rav Nassan. And, I guess Rav Nassan wasn't being mekayim in the pasuk of Nasain Titein Lai. So they forced him to give tzedakah. Okay, Bezin has the capacity to force someone to do a mitzvah. Ask Tosfos, wait a second, there's a rule in Shas. Bezin will never compel someone to do a mitzvah that the Torah writes reward for the mitzvah. There's a rule, kol mitzvah saseh shamatan schara ksuva b'tzida. Any positive commandment that there's reward in the pasuk, ein bezin shamata muzharam aleha. The lower courts, the courts here in this world, are not commanded to enforce it. As Tosfos, and tzedakah has schar, the mitzvah of tzedakah, the Torah writes a reward for. What's the reward? Ki biglal hadavar hazeh yivarechecha. So since this is a mitzvah that matan schara kasa b'tzida, how could we force Rav Nassan to give tzedakah? You hear the kasha? Tosfos asks, how do we force Rav Nassan to give tzedakah, but this is a mitzvah shematan schara kasa b'tzida? And I remember 25 years ago, I heard from a Magid Shir, Rabbi Yankel Emert, who said over in the name of Rapam, I found it today in the Avnei Miluim, that there's a very simple answer to this question. The reward, ki beglal hadavar hazeh yivarechecha, is the reward for giving tzedakah? Or perhaps, no, the reward in this world is not for giving tzedakah. Maybe in the next world you'll be rewarded for giving tzedakah. Nasoin titenlai, give the tzedakah. That's the first thing. Number 2, v'lo yeira levavcha b'sitchalai. Don't give it begrudgingly. If you don't give it begrudgingly, ki beglal hadavar hazeh yivarechecha, God will bless you. So the reward in this world is for giving it as a sport. But for giving it, no, only in the next world. The reward in this world is for giving it as a sport. So maybe the answer to Tosfos' question, says the Avnei Milum. You know, the Avnei Milum is the author of the Ketzos HaChoshen. It's one of the most lamdash svarim on Eben Ezer. He says maybe tzedakah is not considered a mitzvah, shematan tzchara ksuva b'tzida, because the reward is not for tzedakah per se. It's for giving it generously, with feelings of generosity. But for the giving it, there's no reward in this world.
So therefore you can force someone.
So therefore we could force someone to give tzedakah. And I thought to say similarly, but not exactly, there was a great gun, Rav Meir Arik. And sometimes a person might say, I'd rather not see the ani face to face, because if I could give him anonymously, there's an idea, tzedakah tatzil mimaves, tzedakah saves from death. So isn't it better, I don't meet the ani face to face, it slipped under his door and I never see him. So I might feel bad if I meet an ani face to face, because I'm losing out. So the Torah says, no. Pasayach tiftach es yad chalai. Open up your hand to him. V'lo yeira levavcha. Don't feel bad that you met him. You know why? You know what you could do now that you met him? Ki beglal hadavar. Now you could offer him kind words. And if you offer him kind words, you could get a bracha that you wouldn't have got had you given it anonymously. So really, ki beglal hadavar hazeh is going on the kind words. So maybe we could go back and read the pasuk. You know what you get rewarded for in this world? Nasayin titenlai, give him the tzedakah. And number 2, v'lo yeira levavcha, don't give it begrudgingly. But you want to get reward. Ki beglal hadavar hazeh yivarechecha. You get reward for the kind words. That you get the real reward, the 17 brachas. So maybe tzedakah is not matan tzchara ksuva b'tzida, because the reward is not for the tzedakah. The Avnei Milum says the reward is for giving it generously. We're suggesting maybe the reward is for the kind words. The bottom line is that, like all of our mitzvahs, this is an opportunity to, shine them up, polish them up a little bit. Because tzedakah is something that we do pretty regularly, but sometimes we fall prey. The Yetzer Hara says, okay, just give it to him and get the guy off your back. So it's important to, muster the focus and the taras halev to give it with feelings of generosity. He should use it in good health. He should enjoy it. I'm sure Hashem will send it back to me. I'm sure I'll get much more blessing in return. And have in mind that by giving it the tzedakah to the ani, there's some kind of unification of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name. The arm is the vav, the fingers are the hey, the coin is the yud, the hand of the ani is the hey. There are many different kavanos that a person could have. Whatever your particular need is, we once learned from Chaim Falaji anyway, whenever you do a mitzvah, it's an eitz ratzon. So take advantage to daven for whatever you need at that time.
Really, would you consider somebody that's coming to collect for a yeshiva or something like that the equivalent of an ani collecting for himself? Or is there...
Well, look, if the guy is clearly a poor man and he's collecting for himself, so he's a full-fledged ani. Most of the time that a fundraiser will come and collect for an institution, they're not going to tell you, but they're taking a cut from it, and the reason that that's their job, so they need it for their own family. Some people will say, here, look, here's a small check for the yeshiva, and here's for you. So that's why we say you got to diversify, because this way you'll definitely hit the right one.
Does it connect to the time of money themselves that Hashem said to test me, and this is...
Yeah, yes. I mean, there's a concept that when it comes to Meiser, you could sort of, test the heavens, whether you're going to be paid back. But just to reiterate, the fourth kavanah that it's always important to mention is the kind words that come along with the tzedakah. This coming week is my grandfather's yahrzeit, Shimon Yehoshua ben Shmuel Yaakov. So he lived on Avenue L and East 9th Street, where Rabbi Landau's shul was. So when he moved on to that block, I'm going to stop in a minute, Rabbi Landau couldn't even get a minyan. But many years later, they probably have thousands of people walking every day. So when he would come to the shul, there were all kinds of aniyim there. The aniyim's faces would light up because, he always had a kind word for each ani. Very often, you go to the kaisel, even if you come with a pocket of coins, it's like here and bug off, But really the ikar tzedakah is v'hamafaisai misparech v'yud aleph brachos. So we should be zoicha to mekayim the mitzvah of tzedakah properly. And this year, again, is dedicated by daily giving. You can go to dailygiving.org. Wishing everyone bracha v'hatzlacha. Thank you very much.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.